Welcome, everyone. Dr. Benitez, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Sure, please stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We welcome those who are here for purposes of addressing the board at the proper time and in the order of their request. If you wish to speak during the meeting, please fill out a form indicating your name and the agenda item you wish to address. You may also make a request to give testimony on an item not listed for discussion today. However, full discussion on any items not listed on the agenda will have to be delayed until such time as the item can be publicly posted in advance as a regular agenda item. If you wish to ask questions, please address them to the chair and not to individual members of the board or to the staff. The board has been meeting in closed session regarding matters listed on today's closed session agenda and wishes to report that no reportable actions were taken. Public hearing, we have none. Call for agenda items for separate action.
Move approval.
Move approval?
Second.
Ms. Carpet?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, staff respectfully request that we pull item number 34 off of the purchasing
hear.
and contracts.
So approve the agenda as amended.
We're
Okay.
requesting to pull number 34 off of the purchasing and contracts report.
Thank you, Yumi.
Okay. So we had a motion and a second.
So I move to approve agenda as amended.
Yeah.
Second.
And a second, yes. It's going to be a little bit challenging tonight because we have a couple of board members zooming in. So for items I think there might be discussion, I will do a roll call style opportunity for everybody to speak, but I think I need to finish my motion actually. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we accept or adopt the agenda as amended. All in favor, Mr. Meyer.
Aye.
Ms. Kerr.
Aye.
Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams? We're voting on adopting the agenda.
I think his image is frozen. Oh, wait.
I don't know if he can hear us. Dr. Williams, can you hear us?
Yes, you were out for a second, but I can hear you now. I vote aye.
Okay, Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
I vote aye. So any opposed, any abstentions? Passes 5-0. Approval of minutes.
Move approval.
Move approval?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. All in favor? Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Dr. Williams?
Aye.
Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? That passes 5-0. Communications, we have none. And now we go to public testimony on items listed on the agenda. So we have one speaker in person, and that's Melissa. And while we're waiting, do we have any online submissions for items listed on the agenda?
No, we do not.
Madam Chair, is there a last name to that speaker?
There is. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it could be Kreitzberg, Kreitzburg. Maybe you could help me Melissa.
John Meyer's an
Kreitzberg.
expert in that kind of stuff.
I think I got it right.
My name's Melissa Kreitzberg. Hello, Long Beach Unified School District Board members. I am asking you to begin the application process for a waiver to reopen schools. I lived in Long Beach my whole life. I went to Lowell, Rogers, Wilson. I'm a product of Long Beach Unified. I've been a nurse for 20 years. My husband and I work at Long Beach Memorial. I've seen COVID patients firsthand. I've experienced seeing the COVID course from diagnosis, progression, treatment, and prognosis. I don't fear COVID. It's a virus that most people recover from, and most children don't even show symptoms. New data even shows kids are less likely to catch and spread the infection too. My husband and I recovered from COVID in 6 days. My children didn't even show any symptoms at all. The American Academy of Pediatric Doctors strongly recommends that school districts reopen for in-class learning. They state that kids being home led to increased behavioral and mental health problems. There are also reports of increased rates of abuse in children. I have 2 boys, first and second grade at Tincher Elementary. They loved school once. They were eager to learn and got only great reports. Now they hate it. They can't sit in front of a screen for 5 hours a day. They get kicked out of Zoom. The screen is glitchy or laggy. They fall behind. Their questions go unanswered. Our second grade teacher threatened to fail my child unless he shows more effort. Their spirits have been broken. My first grader hides under the desk, has fits of rage and crying. They miss that human connection with the teacher, that social interaction with students. Their eyes are red, swollen, they complain of headaches. My children are bored, they can't follow along, and most importantly, this isn't working. They are not learning. Distance learning is causing emotional and mental distress. They are sad, stressed, frustrated, and full of anxiety. My niece is a sophomore at Lakewood High School, and she's an only child of a single mother. So she sits at home, alone, isolated every day on Zoom school. No sports, no interaction. She's now depressed. She sleeps all day and is withdrawn. 5 hours of Zoom school or screen time is horrible for my 6 and 7-year-olds. The Zoom school isn't real school. I don't think testing grades or absences should even be recorded. I'm speaking on my own experiences with Zoom school, but many parents I know are feeling disappointed and frustrated and helpless with the school district. And they're afraid to speak up for whatever reason. My kids went to camps all summer, baseball camp, church camp. They're an after-school program now with the city. They wore masks. They took temperatures, they washed their hands, no outbreaks. So please, I urge you to look at the current data about school opening safely all over the US and California. Please give us an in-person option for those families that want it. Quarantine the sick kids and teachers. Let them stay home. Let healthy people live. Quarantine was to flatten the curve. It's flattened, but it's never going away. Long Beach Unified, you need to figure out a way to get our kids an education that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. And because we have no online submissions for testimony on items listed on the agenda, we'll move to testimony on items not listed on the agenda. And we have speakers in person. We'll start with Jennifer and then go to Eric.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Parkin, and I'm here to speak about the current state of special education in the district. My daughter is heavily involved in the special ed program, and I would like to address how recent policymaking has affected her education. When my daughter was 6 weeks old, she suffered a massive stroke due to an aneurysm that burst in her brain. Emergency brain surgery saved her life, although one of the effects of surgery was that she lost half of her vision. Subsequent to surgery, we have battled severe seizures and have participated in physical, occupational, and speech therapies. We have fought hard over the years to help our daughter recover from her traumatic brain injury and live as normal a life as possible. When the COVID-19 pandemic shut schools down, we worked hard at home to educate our daughter. However, we saw her already limited eyesight decline as a result of hours of concentrated screen time and doing close-up work. By the end of the school year, our daughter's vision had deteriorated so badly that she couldn't hold her eyes together long enough to take a picture. Over the summer, I contacted the District Office of Special Education about our situation and concerns. Instead of working with us to come up with a plan that would fulfill the obligations set forth in my daughter's IEP, I was met with resentment and annoyance. My requests and concerns were ignored and dismissed. We were sent a prior written notice from the district absolving themselves of all responsibilities in regards to my daughter's special education. This response is completely unconscionable. An IEP is a contract between a student and a school district. The district's refusal to honor their contracts with special needs students is immoral. The district is actively discriminating against my daughter and her physical disability, and countless other children as well. I have consulted with multiple advocates about what we can do, and they all believe that the district can be forced to provide services, but it will only happen at great financial cost to our family. Is that fair? Is it equitable? No, it is not. It appears that the district and the Board of Education are more committed to teacher contracts than to the contracts they entered into with students. The teachers have a union to represent their needs and concerns, but who do the children have? Who will stand up for the unique needs of children with IEPs? I can tell you from personal experience that it will not be Dr. Heenan and the Department of Special Education. Even after the governor, state, and county health departments approve special ed kids to return to campus for in-person instruction, the district will not do it. Does anyone here feel an obligation to care for our most vulnerable? To those who say that it is not safe for children to return to campus, I would like to point out that preschool and daycare programs are currently being held on campuses throughout the district. High school sports teams are meeting on campus for practice. If it's safe enough for those children, teachers, and coaches to be at school, then it's certainly safe enough for our special ed programs to resume immediately. To come to any other conclusion is sheer hypocrisy. I am asking the board to take a stand against the act of discrimination against children with disabilities. A district and Board of Education that absolves themselves of responsibility is not worthy of the trust placed in them. Thank you.
Thank you. After Eric, we have Sarah.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eric Miller, and I'm here to talk about the reopening of our schools. Obviously, that is the big elephant in the room, as I think everybody's looking forward to the day that we can have a classroom full of our kids and teachers and really driving home the strong academic policies that everybody's been taught to do. But obviously, we're a long way from that. When we talk about reopening our schools, I really want to make sure that we are consistent and aware of making sure that our teachers, our parents, and our classified workers are all on the same page. My fear is that there are decisions that are being made without consensus. And when we're talking about keeping the continuity of a strong school board that has been put in place, not having consensus can be the straw that breaks the camel's back with the next generation of our young people. And so as I talk about the reopening of our schools, I want to talk about a small story here. I have a 5-year-old niece. Her name's Kelsey Grace, and she goes to Star King. I actually was assisted with helping her get into Star King, and as she's been very excited about sitting in front of this computer and going into her Zoom classrooms and meeting her great teacher, Mr. Rayburn, she does often ask, when am I going to get an opportunity to go back to school? I've heard her talk about it as someone who's very involved with the district at this point. She often looks to me for those questions. And so as I share with her the idea of a transition plan, which she's a little girl, she doesn't understand the idea of a transition plan. She does understand that she wants to be safe. And I talk to her about not necessarily being safe for her, but because my sister and my niece stay with my mother, heaven forbid the day that one of them contracted the disease and can bring it back to the household where my mom is a stage 4 cancer survivor. And so when we're talking about the reopening of our schools and making sure that we keep all the practices and protocols in place, yes, I do want us to think about the safety of our young people. But more importantly, let's think about the impact that it can have on those households. And so, yes, I want you to continue to keep our kids safe, and I want you to continue to keep our teachers safe. But let's also think about those parents and those grandparents that could potentially be affected. Thank you.
Thank you. After Sarah, we have Brenda.
Sarah Cameron Bennett. Good evening. Last week, I spoke to introduce myself, the Facebook group Reopen Long Beach Schools, and to impress upon you the importance to many members of the Long Beach Unified School community that schools open as soon as kids can return in a safe manner. Tonight, I am here to simply ask for transparency, communication, and a little creativity from all of you. Our kids started online school on March 16th, and since then, we have heard from our superintendent only a few times. And specifically, during Jill Baker's video presentation on September 9th, we were simply told that online school would persist through January 28th. But why? As we set our plan to convince you to allow the families of your 70,000 students to have a choice of a hybrid or online education as soon as COVID numbers allowed, we realized that we couldn't possibly figure out a way to be able to achieve our goal without specific knowledge. Why was January 28th chosen as the next milestone? What if LA County moves to the appropriate tier to reopen schools prior to that date? Would Long Beach still be online? Would we fill out the application for IEP's students to return to school? And would we be able to apply for a waiver to return to in-person education? Is the teachers union for or against reopening? And is this decision tied to the upcoming election? There are so many questions and zero answers coming from this building. Rather, parents are forced to search for their own answers. A parent in your district messaged me, asking me if he can personally apply for a waiver for his son. We are all talking with friends, poring over newspapers and social media, searching for the reasons behind your decisions. And while we do this, rather than wanting to support you in your decision-making, we are becoming more and more skeptical and more frustrated. I ask you very simply, start communicating with your constituents. Jill, please institute a video update every 2 weeks on the progress you are making towards reopening. It doesn't have to be fancy. We don't need to see a classroom set up for COVID. We don't care about the optics. We care about the information. And while asking for transparency and communication, we would also like to ask for creativity. We understand that the path towards reopening has hurdles. Share those with your community. We can help. If the issue is financial, let us start an education foundation, similar to that of Manhattan Beach. I have $100,000 pledged today to help reopen schools. Let's find a way to use it. If this is a political issue, let's tackle it. We are ready to mobilize. I spoke with Assemblyman Patrick O'Donnell today, and he is ready to help. Members of our group have been in touch with officials in LA County and our state and representatives from TALB. We will write, we'll picket, we'll make phone calls, but we can't support you until you bring us into the fold.
I think your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
After Brenda, we have Kimberly.
Font is not big enough this time. Good evening, LBUSD board and staff. My name is Brenda Durnan, and I'm a parent of a Wilson High School and a Rogers Middle School student. Today I'm here to talk to you about communication. Last night I had the honor of listening to the carefully thought out back to school night presentations of the Wilson Way teachers. Although some of the information could be found on their Canvas homepage and their course syllabus, there's something comforting about hearing the words directly from each individual teacher. On September 10th, Dr. Baker dropped a pretty heavy video message that crushed the spirit and hope of many students, teachers, and parents, that we would not be returning to in-person school until at least January 28th. And since that date, there has been silence. Yes, we've had occasional written correspondence from the district telling us about attendance policies, Canvas and Zoom updates, nutritional service changes, and training dates for teachers. But as far as giving our students, teachers, and parents confidence that our district is thinking of the needs of every single student and that you are committed to getting the kids back to in-person school as soon as possible, there has been silence. The LBUSD community deserves to know the plan for how our district is working to ensure that as soon as our county or city allows for it, you are 100% committed to bringing our students back to in-person school. Our LBUSD board gave you, Dr. Baker, full authority and trust to make decisions related to COVID-19 pandemic with the emergency resolution. Your LBUSD families, students, employees need you to lead the way, Dr. Baker. We deserve to know the plan for how and when our students will be coming back to in-person school. We need full commitment that you are doing everything in your power to make sure this happens the moment it is allowed. We need communication from you, our leaders of Long Beach Unified School District, to give us hope that there's a plan and that we are going to get back to in-person school. I don't envy any of you. I know this is really hard times, and no matter what decision you put out there, there's probably going to be 50% of people that agree with it and 50% that don't. It's kind of how leadership works. I've dealt with it as PTA president for many, many years, and I know it's hard. But I was here about a month ago, and I said, I am here for our students, and those are the kids that I don't envy right now. They are struggling. They need to know that you are committed to getting them back to in-person school. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kimberly is the last one.
We do have some emailed comments.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Kimberly O'Shea, and I am grateful for this opportunity to speak. As mentioned in my many letters to the Board of Education, I am a product of LBUSD, a former student, a teacher, and now, unfortunately, a former parent, VIP, and PTA board member. Long Beach Unified runs deep in my heart, and I will do everything I can to advocate for the success of the students in this district. Tonight, however, I come to you with a different agenda. I'm not here to tell my story or to tell you why my children and the other 70,000 students in this district need to be in school. I'm here to share the success story of my two who get to go back to school in person. 2 weeks ago, my husband and I made a very difficult decision to pull them from Naples and send them to a school where they could attend in person. That school is just 4 miles from Naples. My children were reluctant. They love their teachers. They love their friends. They didn't want to go. Their connections to Naples is that strong. But now, a week and a half in, they are both thriving again. They went through a period of screen detox and transition, but it is clear that we made the right decision. They come home each afternoon and excitedly tell us about their day, playing and working with their new friends and with their new teachers. They are excited about school again. Yes, we have to follow specific health and safety protocols. They get temperature checks and wear masks all day. They are becoming expert hand washers, and their teachers are doing so much in the way of sanitizing and doing their best to keep them safe. The staff was prepared for a return to school in August, and my children don't mind the masks or the temperature checks. It's a small price to pay for their return to school. The main argument is that this school was prepared and had the best interest of their students in mind. They did whatever they needed to do in order to get their children back in the classroom where they deserve to be. The students of LBUSD are entitled to this same experience. We are all aware of how big our district is. We are aware that LA County has many hoops to jump through because of the sheer size. But we parents need to be assured that you are doing everything you can to prepare for a return to the classroom when it is safe to do so, not January 28th. We need transparency and communication from our leaders. Let parents help with this process because there are so many of us out there who are ready and willing. All of the students in LBUSD deserve what my children have just experienced. They deserve a choice to return to the classroom if they are ready, with their teachers and peers. They deserve the chance to succeed despite very difficult times. They are entitled to the health and safety measures that schools provide, including meals, proper school supplies and infrastructure, and a safe place to learn and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have online public comment.
Yes. This is from Holly Fisher. Dear Board of Education, I wanted to let you know that the decision to maintain a full-day schedule is really hurting your teachers and students. I currently teach at Hamilton Middle School, and I understand that in the spring, there was an outcry for a full-day schedule, but now we are drowning. By my final class of the day, students are complaining of headaches, dizziness, migraines. They are uninterested, frustrated, and have spent hours on the computer, not to mention the extra time on the computer required to complete homework. I myself and countless teachers have spent hours fighting to make Canvas work or make it accessible for our students, and it is frustrating that the district is not modifying our schedule to help with these struggles. I know that we are being provided with support days, but what we need is time daily or weekly to prepare and modify all of our classes to fit Canvas virtual format. My 1 hour prep period barely covers my work, and I am spending upwards of 10 hours a day on a computer just trying to be prepared for a basic day of instruction. We need help. We need support. We need a modified middle school schedule that will take into account the hours of planning the district is asking of us. A teacher measured how many clicks on the mouse it takes to post a Google assignment in Canvas to 5 classes. It's 158 clicks. There is no shortcut, and it's exhausting, and that's just one assignment. I have never felt less supported or more stressed in my teaching career. There simply aren't enough hours in the day to make this work effectively. Teachers are struggling. Please help. Please look to the surrounding districts for scheduling or consider reinstating the minimum day schedule so we can have the extra hour at the end of the day for work. The students don't need a full virtual day. We need to realize this is not business as usual, and it should not be considered such. Countless students and teachers are exhausted and frustrated, and we need you to help us and acknowledge this. Thank you for your time in reading this. Holly Fisher, Hamilton Middle School. This is from Jonah Lipuma. First, LBUSD leadership, thank you for using science, data, and experts to decide when to reopen schools. Second, LBUSD leadership, please modify the current middle school schedule. In middle school, in-person classes have 37 or more students per class. In a Zoom class, there are 37 or more students per class. If the expectation is to provide quality instruction to every student every day, then please support that expectation with a schedule that focuses on quality over quantity. Please implement a schedule that reflects the California Department of Education guidelines. Please implement a schedule that considers the health of students and teachers. Please refer to the schedule submitted to each board member and to each LBUSD executive member weeks ago. Lastly, please consider postponing teacher evaluations until next year. Teachers need admin to spend any additional time they have to check in on our students academically, emotionally, and to help contact students with chronic absences. We also need admin to use additional time they have to prepare their respective sites for a safe return to school. Jonah Lapuma, Hughes Health teacher. Hello, my name is Mihaela Mayer, and I am the mother of Darius Michael Mayer, who is a 6th grader, accelerated GATE student at Hughes Middle School. I am writing with regard to the online middle school regular day schedule, which is currently from 9 a.m. to 3:40 p.m. I am extremely concerned about my son, who is only 11 and has just started attending middle school, and other kids his age spending too much time in Zoom on screen. I would like to suggest that the minimum day schedule be implemented the entire time that kids are online. There are numerous studies that indicate that too much screen time is detrimental for children at this age, and having kids glued to the screen until 3:40 in the afternoon is unacceptable. I have spoken with other parents who share my concern. I'm also aware that changes have been implemented in elementary school schedules, and high school students have options that allow them to be off-screen for a portion of the time they are being instructed online. I am a college professor. I also use Canvas and Zoom to teach remotely, and I see that many of my college students find it difficult to pay attention for even 2 hours. Whereas I understand that online instruction is the modality that makes sense at this time, in light of this national emergency created by this pandemic, I do not see why the schedule cannot be modified to make sure that kids are not in front of the computer for most of the day. After they get done with homework, they will have spent a large part of the day online. I appreciate your attention, and I'm hopeful that you will be addressing my concern. This is from Brandy Steege. My name is Brandy Steege, and I'm a parent of 2 students at Rogers Middle School. I appreciate that the board has been receptive to feedback from parents, and I hope that my feedback on the issue of the virtual schedule will be taken into account. The middle school virtual schedule, 9 o'clock to 3:40 every day, is not sustainable on a long-term basis for students and teachers. For students, it is incredibly difficult to stay in one place looking at a computer for that amount of time. Even with teachers doing their best to create engaging content, breakout rooms, etc., it is not enough to keep their attention or focus. It is detrimental to students' health and motivation to learn. They need a shorter amount of time for scheduled classes and more time for independent study. For our teachers, the current schedule doesn't allow time for preparation, working with students who need additional help, responding to emails from parents and students, etc. Shortened time for scheduled virtual classes would permit time for office hours, one-on-one attention, and independent study. Students who need it can attend office hours, and those who don't can study independently. Please reconsider the all-day, everyday middle school virtual class schedule. There are various alternatives, any of which would be an improvement. For example, minimum day schedule, hybrid schedule many of us signed up for, AM, PM, or every other day groups with or without block classes. As you take the time necessary to evaluate the alternatives, please return to the minimum day schedule. Thank you for considering my request. This is from Chan Hobson. Dear Board President Diana Craighead and honorable board members, my name is Chan Hobson, Executive Director of the Kamai Parent Association. I'm sorry that I won't be able to attend the meeting in person. I have 3 follow-up questions to the board. When will you plan to start the after-school Kamai Heritages language program in Whittier in 2021 for Kamai students, as Dr. Steinhauser promised on Tuesday, December 17, 2019? Number 2, how many more hotspots will you have to accommodate the extreme needs of the parents who have multiple children in the family? Number 3, will you allocate the 2021 budget to hire more Kamai teachers or staff to increase the communication and engagement level with Kamai parents and students? Thank you very much, Chan. This is Sophia Chim. Dear President Diana Craighead and honorable board members, my name is Sophia Chim, a mother of 3 young children. 2 of them are attending Whittier Elementary School this year. I would like to request your consideration on some important points. Your consideration to allocate the budget related to the after-school Kamai Heritage Language Program in 2021. Hotspots for low-income families. For example, at Whittier Elementary School, there are 130 families in the waiting list that really need hotspots, but LBUSD provided only 20 hotspots to WES. As one of the low-income families, I would like to request LBUSD to help our students to have access to the internet for their distance learning. After-school tutoring program for non-English speaking families for all grades, elementary, middle, and high school. Most students from the non-English speaking families, their English level is lower than their grade level. Thank you for your attention. This is from Linda Chi. Good afternoon. I'd like to get, okay, sorry. I'm writing to express my concerns about the budget allocation for the language access inclusion in the LBUSD. Unfortunately, I'm not able to participate in person in order to share my comments and concerns. I would like you to share these comments with the board. We need to strive for equity across all cultural groups and provide appropriate activities and programming for all students. According to the U.S. Census in 2010, Cambodians make up 3.9% of the Long Beach Asian population of 59,496. It is worrisome to see that the Cambodian students and parents do not have appropriate representation in the Long Beach Unified School District. I recognize that many young Cambodian students do not have equal access to a Khmer dual language immersion program from pre-kindergarten to high school. It has been identified that in District 3, there are many Cambodian students who have a high need for assistance, yet little progress has been made to address their needs. Furthermore, these are the urgent issues that need your immediate attention as you consider how to allocate funding for the students in this school year in 2020. Please see the listed items below. Khmer dual language immersion program for pre-K to high school students. Khmer history and Khmer ethnic studies. Hiring more qualified Khmer teachers and personnel in LBUSD in order to have a better understanding and communication with Cambodian parents and students in the Long Beach community. I would like to see change happen now and that the Cambodian students and parents receive support from LBUSD leadership. Thank you for your time and taking these urgent matters into consideration. Linda Chi. And that concludes all public testimony.
Thank you. Okay, now we have a staff report with Drs. Brown and Dr. Simon.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'll be joined shortly by my colleague, Dr. Simon. And this evening, we hope to do two things. One, to bring clarification to some of the misunderstandings and confusion that have been a part of the last few weeks, as we have heard many things about new guidance. So even in response to some of the public comments we've just heard, I think that we're right on time in terms of being able to offer some new information to the confusion that may be a part of what people are experiencing right now. Secondly, we would like to bring forward the ideas that the city has raised regarding the possibility of application for a waiver for students TK through second grade. And then finally, we will talk with you about our phasing in process for students who have special needs. The clicker's not working, so Letitia, would you mind advancing that slide? Thank you. So with the information that has been a part of the last few weeks, I think it's really important to work from a common conversation. And currently, Los Angeles County remains in the most restrictive tier, or as we're hearing it referred to recently, the purple tier. That's also described as being a widespread community transmission phase. This tier is based on both case rate and test positivity, and schools are not eligible to open right now. I want to say that more clearly because there continues to be questions about why we're not open. The reason that we're not open right now is really a very simple answer. It might not be a desirable answer, I acknowledge that, but it's a very simple answer. In the County of Los Angeles, of which we are a part, we are not able to reopen until the county has moved into the red tier or tier 2 and has been a part of that tier for a determined amount of time, which I will say today is currently 14 days, but I say that in clarification that that is the guidance today, because one of the things that we have experienced as a part of this time that we have been living in since March is that guidance changes regularly. So as of today, we are part of the purple tier. We are not eligible to reopen. As we move into a red tier, which there are many predictions, and we don't know if any of them are accurate about when that will happen, then we will be in the next conversation around what our reopening process may look like. Currently, Los Angeles County, so this week, has opened a process for the ability to apply for a waiver. And so in response to some of the comments that we just heard, that there has not been communication around our reopening status since September 10th, I will say that that has been specifically because prior to this week, there's been nothing new to share. But on Monday, Los Angeles County opened the opportunity for schools to apply for a waiver for students TK through 2nd grade. Additionally, this week, beginning on Tuesday and with some revisions this morning, the Long Beach Health Department has also opened a waiver process for limited in-person instruction for TK through 2. In this instance, Long Beach is acting as our own health jurisdiction, and for the first time in these last months, Long Beach is doing some things that are slightly in variation to what Los Angeles County has been doing. So I'm going to talk about what that process within the Long Beach Health Department looks like. As of this morning, they opened the process yesterday, but as of this morning, they've made some revisions, and the process is that application for a waiver may be made by individual schools for TK through 2 instruction. I want to say that for Long Beach Unified, and we're the only school district in Long Beach, any application that goes forward would be made with the support of the district and in conversation with those schools. And I'll talk a little bit more about the level of criteria that exists. The priority will be given to schools with a high percentage of free and reduced lunch recipients. And currently in the city of Long Beach, there has not been a defined number of sites that will be selected for a waiver by the city. Thank you. So here are some things. Go back one, please, Letitia. Thank you so much for your help. Here are some things that the waiver application is requiring, and this is from the City of Long Beach. They are requiring a letter of support from the superintendent. They're requiring a letter of support from all labor representatives, which for us is TALB and for CSEA. They're requiring a letter of support from parent organizations from any school that is applying. They're asking for demonstration of preparation for all health and safety protocols, including appropriate protective equipment, and we have been preparing and are prepared for that. They're asking for a plan for incorporating surveillance testing into regular school operations for all school employees. That means COVID testing for school employees. This is a new requirement. This is not something that's been required before. And this is something that we are activating on a plan so that we can be prepared for any possibility of what may happen next. They are requiring a flu vaccination program. This is not entirely new to us. We have, in tandem with the city, offered flu vaccination clinics prior. We have never had the requirement or any condition of employment be connected to flu vaccination, so this is new. They are also asking for training on contact tracing for involved staff that would be a part of any school that would seek application on this waiver. And then the other thing that is rather obvious but not stated is waivers would be issued on the option that schools could emphasize that they are prepared and ready with the health and safety protocols that are required. So in terms of our next steps, this is where we are in this process, because I know that the obvious question is, and I see that the media is already covering the story that Long Beach has opened the opportunity for schools to apply for waivers. So the obvious question from our community is, well, are you going to do it? Where do you sit with this? And so I'll tell you exactly where we sit with it right now. In terms of our next steps, we are in ongoing communication with our labor partners regarding the waiver process, because their support, and specifically a letter of support, is a criteria for us to proceed with any part of this process. We have had multiple conversations as last week ended, and multiple conversations already this week with our labor partners. We are using analysis of data from in-person experiences that we have had to guide our next steps. I think it's important to note that since the middle of August, we have had our Child Development Centers, our Head Start, as well as Kids Club, actively supporting students in our facilities. In fact, we are serving currently about 1,600 students through those varying programs, either through childcare or as preschool. And we are learning from those experiences every week. We have had several incidents of COVID exposure since we have been running these programs. Those exposures have not been substantial given the number of students that we are supporting, but we have found in every week that we have learned something about exposure, and we have had cause to quarantine within these programs. And so the reason why I say that is because we want to be very careful in the way we proceed, and we want to be sure that when we move forward with a plan, any type of plan for reopening or bringing students back to our campus, that we can do so in a safe manner and that we can do so with as little disruption as possible. One of the criteria, and it's come up tonight, so I'll address it. One of the questions that we've been asked is, why January 28th? Why this January 28th date? Where did you get it and what is it for? And so I will say that that date we determined specifically in partnership with our health department. We have consulted with them on decisions like this, and we talked about that date as a possibility for several reasons. One, because we really want to avoid an opening and closing. It has been completely upsetting for our community to have to close schools going back to March 13th. The messages that have come since that time around the need to continue distance learning, every single one has been upsetting to our community and to our students, and we acknowledge that. And the thing that we want to proceed very carefully about is that we are not too hasty in our decision making around bringing students back to campus and would cause us to have to close for any length of time going forward. And so our decision, and I realize that it has been met with some support and some real frustration. Our decision has been made to be prudent around the health data that we have, the impact of cold and flu season, and the desire to keep school open and moving forward as we phase in a reopening. So with those things in mind, the other piece of information around January 28th was that we aligned with the semester, which for elementary matters less, but for high school is critically important to the flow of the way that they take classes and receive credits for classes. The other thing that we'll be looking at, and I've mentioned it already, is our early study and consideration around the impact of cold and flu season as it begins, and we haven't really begun that season yet, but recognizing that every cold and flu related symptom is a symptom of COVID, we want to plan very carefully around the fact that we don't want to be in an open and then close process. And then next, we are going to hear very shortly, Dr. Simon's going to come up and share a really well thought out plan with how we are moving forward with phasing in our students who have special needs. I want to highlight, just because the language becomes very confusing, that the phasing in process is not a part of the waiver process. The waiver process is separate of phasing in. A waiver is something that we would choose as an option to apply for. Phasing in, that Dr. Simon is going to come up and talk about, is something that is a required component as we move forward for students with special needs. So with that, I could ask Dr. Simon up or take your questions now. Would you like to ask questions now or hear the full presentation and then proceed, whatever you choose.
I don't have a question, I just have one recommendation. Is that okay? Or should I wait till the, it's not a question, it's just,
I think you should say it.
okay.
I think you should do what she said.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would love to be able to take the few minutes that you just shared and just of this board meeting and send it out to everyone, Dr. Brown, through our social media, text, whatever, because that, in a nutshell, encapsulates what many folks have been hypothesizing about, what they will continue to hypothesize about, and I think my recommendation would be if we can get just that segment out and up.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Kerr, did you have something to add? How about Doc?
I'll wait
Okay.
for my questions too, Madam Chair.
Okay, then we will wait until Dr. Simon is finished with her presentation before asking questions.
And I'll just step to the side so I'm available for any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you.
For cleaning the area, I appreciate it. To Madam President Craighead, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Baker, and to the community, as always, it is a pleasure to be with you and to present to you. So going into, let me just hit, let's don't know if it's working. Thank you. Letitia. So I want to go into some information around the in-person phasing in for our students with disabilities. And as, thank you, Dr. Brown mentioned, the waiver and the in-person phasing for special education based on the guidance that we've received from Governor Newsom, our California Department of Public Health, and the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, is a tad bit different, right? So we know that with the waiver process, it's TK through second. It's very specific. It's even more stringent, more so than the in-person phasing in for special education. But I want to just take some time to discuss the guidance that we've received. And as Dr. Brown mentioned, that guidance changes frequently. So I just want to warn some of our parents and our community members out there that tomorrow, this guidance could look different. Friday, the guidance could look different. And I know that's confusing, and I know that's frustrating. It's a little frustrating for us sometimes as well as we begin to plan and have conversations with key stakeholders. But I just want to put that disclaimer out there just so our parents know. So if you hear something a little bit different tomorrow, it's not that we provided misinformation. It's just that the information just changes that frequently. So going into the guidance, the updated guidance, because it has changed so frequently, clarifies the conditions that must be met to offer in-person services for small groups of students if school is otherwise unable to reopen under state public health directives. And it also enables schools to provide limited in-person instruction, targeted support services, in-person assessments, which are truly vital at this time for our students with disabilities, and even for those general education students who are waiting in the wing to have those assessments conducted to see if they do qualify for special education services. And the facilitation of distance learning in small group environments for students with disabilities. So due to this guidance, a school district may allow a cohort of no more than 12 students and 2 adults, and no more than 10% of the overall population for purposes of instruction for these groups, even when schools are not fully open. And that's very vital. When you look at the cohort, so there's 2 adults, there's 12 students, and it could be no more than 10% of the population. So for example, if there's a school of 300 students, right, only 30 students' bodies can be right, at that school for this type of service. So that's very important, as well as a very small handful cohort of students who can be a part of this. Next slide, please. Also, there's information about cohort mixing. So students within, let's just say, one cohort cannot be mixed into another cohort. And that's to minimize the exposure and also potential, right, contamination, as they mentioned. Cohorts must be kept separate from one another. So if we have, let's just say, 2 cohorts at one of our larger high school campuses, one of the classes have to be maybe on the far east side, while the other class is on the far west side. So we have to be very conscientious of how spaced out, right, our students are as well. Other considerations, physical distancing. I know we've heard that terminology a lot about physical distancing. Also, in collaboration with masking, there has to be cleaning and other safety measures that must be enforced also during this time that we have cohort of students returning back. So just quickly, the phases, just to talk about what that may look like. And again, we are working in consultation with our health department just to ensure and also to release when we can start with these phases. So when you see these phases, you're not going to see dates, you're not going to see timelines, you're just going to see just phases, because we have to also watch and consult and again have conversations with our public health officials. So phase 1, and when I say pilot, I mean a very small handful of students who are receiving in-person assessments at the Preschool Assessment Center at the Buffum Total Learning Center. So right now there's a very stringent protocol that's been put in place. We even had to push the timelines back on implementing this phase, if you will, because we wanted to make sure that things were tight, staff were properly trained, and that we had ample time to work with our custodial staff to talk about things that need to be sanitized, disinfected, and cleaned as far as our assessment protocols. We've started some work with our Preschool Assessment Center, and that commenced on September 28th, 2020, and I can tell you so far so good. But we are still looking, we're having conversations, we're meeting with staff just to make sure everyone feels safe and to ensure that the protocols and procedures put in place are being followed. But again, a very small number of our students who are receiving the in-person assessments. And let me tell you why that's important. So since March 16th, we have not been able to conduct in-person assessments, of course, because of COVID-19. When you conduct virtual assessments, you also allow the opportunity for the assessments to be invalid or for your validity and reliability to be questioned. So we have to be careful about not over-representing students within special education or adding more students into special education that naturally may not belong there, but sometimes when you conduct those virtual assessments, which is why some people don't like doing them, you run into that issue. So we are happy that we're able to start that in-person assessment phase. We have parents who've been waiting for 6 or 7 months for assessments just because there's been some type of moratorium on just providing those in-person assessments. So I'm happy that we're beginning to have those conversations, put things into place, put protocols and procedures in place where folks feel safe and our parents feel safe and our students feel safe to do so. The next phase, which will be phase 2, would be our elementary assessments at school sites. So when I say elementary sites, that means all of our elementary sites, because I can tell you right now we have pending assessments at each school site in this district, and we got to get back to work somehow, some way, in a very safe way, so we're working on those pieces as well. Next slide, please. Phases 3 and 4. So phase 3, will consist of secondary assessments, and again, at every secondary site. And then phase 4 would be in-person services, in-person related services, right? So DHH, SLP, OT, PT, many of those things will need to be put in place in phase 4. And then small groups, the small group instruction at select school sites. And there's going to be a focus on our youngest, so those students who are at Buffum, our collaborative co-teaching program, our CCT program, our moderate to severe, our adult community transition program, our specialized healthcare program, and also our Success program, which is for students with autism spectrum disorders. The students that I mentioned as far as the small group and in-person instruction are our most severe students with disabilities. Those who are just not learning. I know we had some parents even speak to students who are in general education and are not learning and having issues with focus and things of that nature. We know that these students are also having a very difficult time, if not more of a difficult time, just because they can't focus. They cannot learn via Zoom. And so we're hoping to bring those students back again as quickly as possible. But again, that's going to be within phase 4 as a watch and consult, because we have to be mindful of our flu season and other things that may come about during that time. And so that's pretty much it in regards to my presentation on the phasing in for students with disabilities. And I guess at this time, we can open up for questions for our board members, for myself, and also for Dr. Brown. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Simon. I think because we have a couple of board members joining us by Zoom, we'll do it in a roll call fashion. So, Mr. Meyer, do you have questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Kerr? Oh, do you have?
Thank you.
Okay.
I do have a couple questions. Thank you both for the presentation. I concur with Dr. Benitez that that is really critical to get that information widely circulated if possible. On the waiver process, so Dr. Brown, I'll start with the first presentation. Something that's new that hasn't been required before is the COVID testing. And I'm wondering, because that's a city requirement, is the city supporting that? Would they be taking care of the COVID testing or working with us to do the COVID testing in some capacity since it's a new requirement?
No, this is something that would be a requirement upon us as a condition of employment for our staff. The city has provided the name of a vendor that they are working with, and they have talked with us about making available the options that are available for any city, or any citizen in the city, but this is something that would be a responsibility upon the school district.
The financial cost of those tests?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is more of a comment for now. So nothing's different in terms of where the county is staged in this pandemic. We are still in the purple tier. So what has changed is that even though the health data puts us in purple, there is now an opportunity, even though we're in purple, to do waivers if schools choose to, and the city has followed suit with some different requirements than the county. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So my assumption is this might present some challenges in terms of just the process, because I know we're just talking about the process now, because we have some schools that reside in LA County that are not in the city of Long Beach. So does that mean that as we consider what a waiver plan would look like, that we are looking at two different processes?
I've confirmed late this afternoon with the city that the City of Long Beach Health Department will be responding to any waiver requests from Long Beach Unified, which would encompass our schools that are in the city of Lakewood, Signal Hill, and Avalon. So I did clarify that this afternoon.
Okay, great, that's helpful. One of the things that we talk about, or you talked about, although no one can predict when we would come out of that next tier or down to that next tier into the red tier, that if in a few weeks we continue on a trajectory that allows the county to come out of, to upgrade into a better tier, that we would begin to look at phasing students in on because of that fact, because we changed tiers, not necessarily because of a waiver?
That's correct. And the thing that becomes very confusing, so I'll try to say it in the simplest way, is that at the point where we would move into the red tier or the next tier, within that tier, one of the opening processes is an opportunity to reopen schools. That does not mean that when we move into the red tier, we will be reopening all of our schools. So I want to be really clear about that because I think it's from a community perspective that's very, very confusing. All of this, I think, is very confusing. I have opportunity to interact with professionals on this topic all the time, and I still find it confusing. So when we move into the red tier, one of the opportunities within that tier could be a reopening of schools, but we will be proceeding with the phasing in process for anything that we do. And we will do that to be as cautious as possible, and we will do that in a prioritized way, learning from all of the experiences that are happening right now, that our CDC and Head Start partners are leading, that we are providing for our students with special needs. And as we move forward, if we proceed with a waiver, or if we move forward with any reopening of schools as we move into the red tier, that may take us towards the January 28th date.
Thank you. And that was going to be my next question. It would just be to continue that. So we are using the phrase phasing in. Could you talk a little bit about like what that looks like at a school site? For example, so I think internally we have an understanding of what that is, but for people who are listening,
sure.
Phasing in obviously means not all the kids all at one time, but if you could give some specifics of what it could look like or potentially look like at a school site might be helpful.
Sure, we're seeing it happen right now, and as we had opportunity to open our early childhood education programs and our child care programs, that has been a part of phasing in. You've heard Dr. Simon talk about in-person assessment. That is a part of phasing in. You've heard her talk about providing related services or therapies for students with special needs. That's part of phasing in. You've heard her talk about opportunity for in-class instruction for our students who have disabilities and are our most vulnerable. That is a part of phasing in. And then as we move into providing more classroom instruction for students, the phasing in process will look like a hybrid model. The reason for the hybrid model has been to limit the number of students that would be on campus at any time. And as I say hybrid, I want to offer a clarification. Again, I think there's been a lot of confusion around the idea of hybrid. One of the things that we've been asked is, well, you asked us if we wanted to do hybrid, and we said yes, so why aren't you doing hybrid? We were asking about hybrid prior to being limited from being able to open schools in LA County. And hybrid is a way of phasing in. So hybrid is a model of beginning to phase in, return students to school in a smaller manner than having the whole student body on campus at any one time. So those are all examples of a phasing in process that will continue as we move through the red tier into the orange tier and into a full reopening. Does that help with clarification?
It does. I appreciate it. Those are all the questions I have for now. I may have some later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kerr. Dr. Williams? Do you have any questions? Are you muted? Dr. Williams, I think you're muted. You need to unmute. There
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
All right. First and foremost, let me just say thank you to Tiffany and Dr. Simon for being able to clarify some of the questions that a number of the speakers. I'm sorry, I hear some noise in the background. Okay, let me start again. Let me thank Tiffany and Dr. Simon for the update on what the district is doing in this area, and I appreciate that update. It's been, very important to me to know that we have been taking steps moving forward on this.
Dr. Williams, I'm going to interrupt you because I think that background noise is coming from your end.
You think it's coming from me?
I do.
Okay.
Can we check on that?
Let's see. Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
Very quickly. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't think that noise was coming through because I had earphones on, but, you know. But what is the district's responsibility for the waiver process, let's say for schools like St. Anthony's? Are we responsible? What oversight responsibility do we have for schools like St. Anthony's?
We don't have any responsibility, sir. They apply as an individual school, and the health department makes a determination about if the waiver will be honored for them or not.
Thank you.
Do you have any other further comments or questions?
Not at this time. Maybe later.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Benitez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Dr. Brown, Dr. Simon, I want to uplift a few things that I heard, particularly as they relate to our commitment to equity. Oftentimes, what I've heard, what has been submitted to us, whether it be public comment or emailed or social media or messages, folks have used and thrown around the term equity in a politicized way, dismissive of the original intent of equitable approaches, strategies, policies, which is to dismantle oppressive structures that impact specific underrepresented marginalized groups. In this case, I have major reservations with our Long Beach Health Department's waiver process. And I think it's important to uplift those because they perpetuate inequities of engagement. And I'm going to refer to very specific things within the waiver process that I think are important to highlight. First off, without resources, it's very difficult to, with the snap of a finger, from one day to another, be completely prepared to bring back students. What I've heard from everyone in our district, what I've seen from everyone in our district is a 100% commitment to bring back students when it's safe to do so. So waving a magic wand and saying, okay, you can now submit a waiver with no support or resources is very problematic. And again, that whether that's for testing, for PPE, for whatever it is for us to be able to assure health and safety protocols. But I think more importantly than that, what's highlighted here is inequities of engagement with regards to pitting teacher against teacher, teacher against parent, parent against parent, district staff against administrative staff and principals and teachers and counselors, with regards to this ask from labor representatives. I think it puts an undue burden on our labor partners. And quite frankly, it's anti-union to me to put that burden on teachers and on CSEA. Additionally, with regards to letters of support from parent organizations, what this comes down to, and it's much of what we've seen in the last 6 months in our global pandemic, is who can best advocate, best mobilize resources, be heard, be the loudest, best organize, engage with the decision makers, policy makers, in this case, us, elected officials, for their own behalves, for their own self-interests. And I think it's important to continuously remind folks that 2/3 of our district students are on free and reduced lunch, that over 10,000 students are on IEPs, that 87% of our students are students of color, right? These are our marginalized, historically underrepresented communities that don't have the kinds of resources, and I'm not talking about monetary resources, that don't have the nimble ability to organize, engage, advocate at the same levels that, quite frankly, other families and students and parents in our district have the ability to do. And again, it's not that one is right and one is wrong, but this process pits people, our stakeholders, against each other, whether it's at the school site level or across our neighborhoods. It's very, very concerning for me. That being said, I think the January 28th date is not just viable and makes sense, it's the safest way for us to approach this through the phasing and the different phases that Dr. Simon alluded to. That doesn't mean that we don't want the best for students. That doesn't mean that we're not committed to bringing students back. These threats about leaving our district, I don't want to offend anyone, but that's not equity. Saying if I don't have my way, I'm going to leave, right? Even if it's at the cost of the majority of our students, of our teachers, of our staff, putting their lives at risk. And I want to highlight that, again, in the spirit of acknowledging, not pitting our stakeholders against each other, that if we want to talk about reducing screen time, which I'm for, all right? We want to talk about high quality instruction. Remote instruction is not ideal, right? No one is advocating for us to continue indefinitely virtually. All right? Can we do better? Absolutely. But we're 1 month in on this experiment, right? So things are not going to work exactly the way that we want them to work. But that's very different than conflating that with health and safety of students, of staff, of teachers. We can have conversations about improving our virtual online instruction, about flexibility in screen time, about the heavy load that our middle school students are carrying, about connectivity and access, about language and technical support and assistance. That's not at the cost of being dismissive of health and safety concerns, particularly for our most vulnerable students. And I'll end with this. And again, I'm uplifting what the presentation that we heard here is and the concerns that I have with the waiver process for our city, right? Not the county, the waiver process for our city. That when we pit our stakeholders against each other, we lose sight of the challenges that a big percentage of our students and families are facing, whether it's our EL students, our students with disabilities, our neighborhoods. Some of our neighborhoods are more dense. So inevitably, there's more human interaction in those neighborhoods. There are extended families living in 1 and 2 bedroom apartments in critical areas of our city and of our district that have been disproportionately impacted by not just contraction of COVID, but with lives and exacerbating our health disparities. The workers at our grocery stores, at our restaurants, at the places that some of us are still privileged and fortunate to convene at, to have lunch at, are predominantly workers of color. Women that are looking after the students that would most negatively be impacted through no fault of their own if we were to wave a magic wand and say, we're opening up schools on Monday for all TK through 2. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with a perpetuation of everything that our district is trying so hard to do, which is dismantling these structural inequities. At the expense of what, though? It's at the expense of those folks that are most vulnerable and lack the resources needed to engage, advocate, mobilize, organize, be heard, be loud. They're over-reliant on public transportation. They don't have the resources to go get hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, to participate in pods, in additional tutoring after school. So if we don't take that into consideration, which our phase-in does, right, our most vulnerable, highest need students, then we are failing the whole intent of public education during the most vulnerable time, arguably, in our district's history. So I highly encourage folks to pay close attention to what was described here tonight in terms of our phase-in, and to not just unilaterally say, because another district is doing it, or because another county is doing it, that that's what's right by all students in Long Beach. And it's not gonna work perfect for everyone. It's not gonna be ideal for everyone, particularly across schools, across grade levels, but that is much better than having the weight of students and families' health and lives because we wanna do right by some students in some geographies, in some neighborhoods, because they have been able to advocate on behalf of themselves. So I highly, highly support our district doing its due diligence right before flu season, right, to make sure, and it's not an overnight, one day to another, that when we, and it's a when, we bring back students, that we don't disregard the whole intent of our public education and the mission of our district to be equitable and really, genuinely reflecting all means all. And I'm sorry that I got on my soapbox tonight, but I am extra passionate tonight about the inequities that a certain path, if we choose it, would take us down that would cause more damage to our most vulnerable communities that they've already suffered all of these months.
Well, I thank you for stepping up on your soapbox because I think it certainly reflects, it reflects my attitudes. I can't speak for anybody else, but I think you've done a great job at explaining the situation. I would add that it's pitting public education against private education, and it's really cutting us off at the knees because we have so many more requirements to meet than, say, private schools. They don't have labor partners to depend on as far as, you know, the required letters, that type of thing. So I would say that this feels like taking a hit to public education, which does not help anybody in this community, not anybody. And we are truly in a no-win situation because we have a certain part of our community that wants us to bring the kids back into the classroom, and we have another part of the community that does not want us to bring the kids back into the classroom. At the heart of the issue, we have the health and safety of the people that we serve. We don't know the full effect on kids as far as this virus is concerned because schools have been closed. So we don't really know the full effect on the kids. As schools are opening across the country and in other places, we are finding that not just our kids, you know, maybe asymptomatic or whatever, but they're spreading the virus. These kids do not go to empty classrooms. These kids go to classrooms with teachers. When they go home, they don't go to an empty home. There are adults that live there, sometimes multiple generations. And so the spread of the virus is going to get worse. And because kids haven't been in school, we don't know the full extent of how they will be suffering or how many kids will be affected. So I believe in our measured approach to let's go slowly. Let's see how we are able to keep everyone as safe as we can. We do have that January 28th date. That is something that we're working towards. We don't know what's going to happen. LA County is moving towards moving to Tier 2, the red tier, but we don't know. That can change. And even if we do move to the red tier, will we remain in that red tier? Will we go back to purple? We don't know. All of that remains to be seen, and this is part of the problem. This is, you know, one of the reasons that we are taking the well, that we are receiving frustration from our community is that we don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. We depend on getting information from the Long Beach Department of Health, LA County Department of Health, all these other entities from the state. This information is ongoing. This information is changing. I had somebody email me saying, why is this ongoing? Why is this information changing? It's changing because the numbers are changing on a daily basis. Hospitalization rates, positivity rates, everything, every metric having to do with this virus is changing on a daily basis. So our information changes, the information we give out changes, the way we do things changes. I think what we're hearing from people, especially tonight, is they want to know what we're working on. They want to have concrete dates on when we're bringing kids back. They want to have some hope. The hope that I can give everybody is that we are actively working on bringing kids back. We want kids back in classrooms, only if it's safe, and we're going to do it in such a way that we can monitor the situation, in such a way that we can handle it and that we can provide what the kids need. And so what we're hearing tonight from our staff is that we are phasing in bringing kids back. We're doing it very slowly. We have our kids in the highest need. We've talked about bringing kids back for assessments. We're going to bring back the youngest kids first, but in a small way. It's not going to be one day we're just going to open, you know, all of this grade or that grade. It's going to be, we'll bring back the youngest kids, and it's going to be deliberate, and we're going to do it as safely as possible. And so that's what everybody needs to know. We're working on it. We're doing it. Are we going to wait until January 28th to do it? No. We're not waiting until January 28th to start this phasing in. We're working on it now. You heard tonight we're working on it. We're already working on it. We already have kids at Buffum. We're already working on assessments. So maybe if the news coming out from us tonight is that there is hope, that we are able to make changes, that we are able to keep up with the ever-changing information, that maybe that will help people understand the how and why we do things. I think I'm ready to move on.
Madam Chair, may I add
Oh,
a few
Ms. Kerr.
comments?
Yes.
Thank you. I asked my clarifying questions first. I was reserving my soapbox until later. So now that we have a soapbox space, I'm going to use it. I want to echo my colleagues' comments. I think one of the things I want to address in terms of the understanding of what's happening, we all want kids back in school. I think I have heard Dr. Baker and Dr. Brown and executive staff talk often about how we know that the magic happens in the classroom. It happens in the relationship between students and teachers and students and each other. And we all want that. And we all want that in a really safe way. So I think one of the echoes that I hear that I am emailed about is that perhaps we don't understand what virtual learning, how that is for kids. And I think it's important to remember we absolutely do. I absolutely do. There isn't a moment in the day that I am not concerned about the impact of COVID in all of its iterations in our community and that it's having on our kids, on their learning, on their ability to relate and be in relationship with their peers, how they, the relationship they have with their own education. There isn't a person that's sitting in this room, and I would imagine around the district, that isn't thinking about that near 24/7. Even waking up in the middle of the night. I just heard from a staffer today, waking up at 3 a.m. and not being able to think of anything else other than how this is all going. So as we consider how we phase in students, I want to assure people that we are thinking about kids in totality, their emotional health. We know that when students come back to us in person, there will be interventions needed that were never needed before because we're responding to 6 months into a pandemic. I will echo Dr. Benitez's comments about the pitting of groups against each other, schools against schools, neighborhood against neighborhood, talking about opening schools in parts of town where infection is less, ignores the very things that make some of our neighborhoods susceptible to a higher infection rate that have to do with healthcare, that have to do with essential working, density, all of those things. This is a multi-layered, incredibly complex situation, and that the coming back together is even more complex than that. And that it isn't, as I think somebody said, waving a wand, that everything's all of a sudden better so we come back together. Again, nothing's changed from a medical perspective today, maybe you can get a waiver, than yesterday when a school couldn't apply for the waiver. And so the only thing that seems to have changed is this desire to speed up a process that has been chaotic for everyone for 6 months. And so to want to interrupt what has been a thoughtful plan around phasing in with a goal of getting our students back, because we just want to hurry it up, I think is ill-advised. I have said multiple times to many people personally that this desire to go back to a more normal, the way things used to be, to want to be able to go out and eat dinner more, to gather with people, is incompatible with bringing tens of thousands of students back together. It's very difficult to have both. If we could put everybody in a bubble and have them come to schools, great, but we know that that's not happening. We know that families are enjoying communal space. We know people are going out to eat more. We know some folks are ill-advised having family gatherings or large gatherings that can increase the spread of COVID. So we can follow all 17 or 18 pages of the procedures put in place for school reopening, from cleaning to sanitizing to social distancing, using outdoor space when we can. Schools can do all of that. We can make our schools as safe as possible according to the protocols. What we can't control is what happens outside of schools. And in my experience, when talking with other board members around this country, they've had to close schools because students bring COVID to school with them, either knowingly or unknowingly. So we know that kids aren't necessarily contracting COVID at school, but we know that it's coming to the school site where we want to gather kids. So all of that to say, this is super complicated. And to those who say we're not thinking about how hard this is on kids' mental health, or we should just, I guarantee we are thinking all of those things and trying to come up with incredibly safe solutions for students, for staff, for everyone involved in our schools. So I don't know what to think about this waiver process other than it seems incredibly divisive in a time when we're really trying to think through a process to get kids back safely. So, soapbox over. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer.
I think it was Dr. Benitez that earlier said that we should capsulize Dr. Tiffany Brown's message and send it out to the public. It was clear, it was definitive, it was thorough. As the public listens to us discuss it, I'm afraid we're losing them. But with a message like Dr. Brown gave, it would be powerful. So that would be my encouragement.
Well, thank you for emphasizing that suggestion, and I believe we'll probably do that. I'm seeing nodding, so I think we're going to do that. So I'll just say thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Happy birthday, Dr. Simon. Thank you for that information. Thank you for all the work. I know that you've put in lots of hours, and it's not just work hours that you've put in, but it's emotional hours too, because this is not your regular business. This is a business of compassion, and it's kids that we serve. And so when it comes to the kids that we serve, that, you know, we can't help but be passionate about it. And I know that affects you as it does me as well. So thank you for the time and effort that you put into this and everything else. Okay. Let's take care of business items. Personnel.
Yes, Madam Chair. I present the following proposed actions prepared by the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resource Services, approved and recommended by the Superintendent. Appointments 32, leaves of absence 106, abandonment of position 2, suspension of without pay 1, resignations 24, retirements 13, abolishments, lack of workload funds 3, amendments 3. Certificated personnel appointments 35 and service changes 4, leaves of absence 7, separations deceased 1, resignations 3, retirements 4, amendments 2, and I move approval.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Dr. Williams? You're muted, Dr. Williams.
I think he still has
They
his Star
muted
Wars
me.
headset on.
No, they muted me. I didn't do it voluntarily, but I.
Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes 5-0. Instruction.
Move approval.
I second.
Discussion. All in favor, Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Dr. Williams?
Aye.
Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
I vote aye, and that passes 5-0. Finance Report A.
I move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Dr. Williams?
Aye.
Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
I vote aye. That passes 5-0. Finance Report B.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I recuse myself from participation in Finance Report B on the consent calendar. I have a potential financial interest under Government Code 1091 and 87100. My husband works for a subcontractor who has done work for the payees.
All in favor, Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
Dr. Williams?
Aye.
Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
I vote aye. That passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. Business Department Report.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. I would just like to thank Tommy Derrick for his Eagle Scout project. He collected things for Bethune. He collected backpacks and school supplies to the tune of over $7,000. So thank you, Tommy, for your work for Bethune. I noticed there were some other things too. Somebody donated instruments to Rogers. Anyhow, people are very generous with our district, so I'd like to thank them.
A French horn, Madam Chair.
French horn, I know, pretty neat. Let's see. All in favor, Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Dr. Williams?
Aye.
Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
I vote aye, so that passes 5-0. Purchasing and Contracts Report A.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that there's a lot of Harmony Project folks on this purchasing and contract report. It's amazing to think that now we have 2nd grade through 8th grade now participating in the Harmony Project. So looking forward to them continuing. They are doing some online and some virtual instruction on Saturdays and looking to do some instruction during the week starting soon. So thanks to all of those involved.
Oh, very good. I was wondering if we were doing that virtually or in person. So virtually, okay. Wonderful.
Yeah, I noticed that too, Board Member Kerr. If possible, I would love to hear a little bit more of some of the details of how we're doing that. I mean, that's a huge endeavor for us, and if anyone can sort of share how we're doing that virtually, or.
I think we're going to get some answers and clarification from Dr. Kale.
No? How's that? Okay, better, there we go. All right, so I'll just start off with, for those who watching who may not know about the Harmony Project, but it comes to Long Beach as part of our Safe Neighborhood Initiative from the Long Beach Police Department in partnership with our Education Foundation and our community partners. And so it's been around since 2015, and it provides full scholarship education and instruments to students who are eligible, and it provides it for their entire childhood. So starting in 2nd grade, going all the way through 12th grade. So next year we will have students in high school joining the program. What they've been able to do right now, in answer to your question, Dr. Benitez, is provide the music lessons live before, via Zoom, of course. Before the session starts, they have a tuning session. So they can bring in their instrument. Well, it's not bringing it in, but it's playing their instrument and tuning it with their instructor. And then actually, if there is a problem and they can't get it to tune remotely, then they will go make arrangements to pick up the instrument and drive it out to have it tuned and repaired. So there's a lot of a lot of support being given to the students to continue in their music education. So I don't know if that helps, gives you a little more background.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me get my glasses back on. Very small writing. All in favor, Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Dr. Williams?
Aye.
Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Aye. Did you hear me?
I did, thank you. I vote aye, so that passes 5-0. Purchasing and Contracts Report B.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Madam Chair, I recuse myself from participation in Purchasing and Contracts Report B on the consent calendar. I have a potential financial interest under Government Code 1091 and 87100. My husband works for a subcontractor who has done work for the payees.
Okay, any further discussion? I just wanted to note that from Purchasing and Contracts Report A, there was an item number 33 that reflects an increase of $1 million for additional support for the ongoing school bond program projects. But on Purchasing and Contracts Report B, there's a total of savings of almost $3 million in school bond projects. So we are ahead of the game. It's just that going over those reports, it was a little alarming to see that one of the items had increased by $1 million. But we are still ahead of the game on that one. Okay, all in favor, Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
Dr. Williams?
Aye.
Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
I vote aye, so that passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. Superintendent items. And we have no unfinished business. New business, Resolution 100720D, supporting National Principals Month.
Move approval.
Second.
And Mr. Meyer, would you read that for us, please?
It's my pleasure. Whereas October 20th is the National Principal Month, is celebrated by the National Association of Elementary School Principals, the American Federation of School Administration, the National Association of Secondary School Principals, and whereas the vision, dedication, and determination of a principal serve as mobilizing forces behind any school improvement effort, and whereas school principals interact daily with students, cultivate positive working relationships with parents, as well as certificated and classified staff, and whereas school principals are expected to be educational visionaries, instructional leaders, assessment experts, disciplinarians, community builders, budget analysts, facility managers, special program administrators, guardians of various legal, contractual, and policy mandates and initiatives, and whereas school principals are multipliers of good teaching, key to teacher retention, and second only to classroom instruction among all school-related factors affecting what students learn at school, and whereas the Long Beach Unified School District is recognized as one of the world's leading school systems, thanks in large part to school principals who contribute immensely to high-quality learning environments for students. Now, therefore it be resolved that the Board of Education of the Long Beach Unified School District hereby acknowledges October 2020 as National Principals Month and urges everyone to express their deep gratitude to school principals for their vital contributions to thousands of students. In witness thereof.
Thank you. And thank you for your service as one of our former principals.
Yeah, I'm not sure I owned up to all those things. I think I was lacking in a few areas.
There's still time, Mr. Meyer.
Okay, all in favor. Mr. Meyer.
Aye.
Ms. Kerr.
Did we move?
What? Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
That was the
Yes.
discussion part.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. You voted aye. Wait. Did I hear from Ms. Kerr?
No, you were talking, so yes, aye.
Dr. Williams?
Aye.
Dr. Benitez?
An enthusiastic aye.
I vote enthusiastically aye also. So that would be unanimous. Thank you. Resolution 100720-B, declaring support for Proposition 15, the California Schools and Local Communities Funding Act.
Move approval.
Second.
And Ms. Kerr, would you like to speak to this one?
I will. I want to thank staff for bringing this resolution forward. As we know, our schools have been chronically underfunded for decades. And this is a resolution, Schools and Communities First, that can repair some of that damage that has been done to our school funding. It's straightforward to me that our schools need and deserve more funding than they're getting. The calculations for this particular proposition, if it passes, Long Beach Unified could receive upwards of $40 million more in funding. I think it is important that we stand for additional funding for our students, and I am grateful for staff for bringing this forward, and I urge support.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that one?
Completely agree
Yes,
with Board Member Kerr. Go ahead.
I'd like to add just as an additional point, we have incurred a great deal of cost in COVID-related items, and that cost continues to escalate each and every day, challenging our state funding to an extent that is unheard of. Additional funding would be greatly beneficial to help with some of the extra funding costs that we've had to incur as a result of COVID. So I strongly support this resolution.
Okay.
May I add, Madam Chair?
Yes.
So thank you, Board Members Kerr and Williams. World-class education costs money. Our public education is founded on that principle. So I think the obligation for us is you can still register to vote. go register and vote. Otherwise, it's hard to be critical of why our district can't do X, Y, and Z if we don't have the much needed resources to be able to do X, Y, and Z. So here's your way to make sure that we get the resources for the program, services, things that we need to continue providing the world-class education. Go register, and if you're registered, vote.
Absolutely. All in favor, Mr. Meyer,
Aye.
Ms. Kerr,
Aye.
Dr. Williams,
Aye.
Dr. Benitez.
Aye.
I vote aye, so that passes 5-0. Additional members to the Community Advisory Committee for Special Education.
Move
Move
approval.
approval.
Second.
Discussion. Okay, I
Yeah,
would
as
just,
Oh, go ahead. You're probably gonna do the same thing I was.
if you were going to be thanking these people for their willingness to serve and naming them, then yes, you are correct. So thank you to Nubia Flores Cedeno, Jinky Steinberg, Jacinda Pitch, and Viola Mae Bledsoe for stepping up and volunteering to help with this committee. Did you have something else to add? Okay,
Perfectly stated, thank you.
thank you. All in favor, Mr. Meyer,
Aye.
Ms. Kerr,
Aye.
Dr. Williams,
Aye.
Dr. Benitez.
Aye.
I vote aye, so that passes 5-0. Next, we have the reappointment of Personnel Commissioner.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
And so now I'd like to bring forward Mr. Ken Cato to talk about this item.
Good evening, President Craighead, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Baker, and members of executive staff. I'm here to introduce for your approval the renewal of the appointment for Personnel Commissioner Terrence Ulashevsky. The Education Code tasked the Personnel Commission with testing, certifying, and employing over 3,000 non-teaching employees for our district. Our office is supervised by these 3 personnel commissioners to provide us the oversight into all of our testing, classification, and certification actions. Commissioner Ulashevsky has been an instrumental member of the commission for over 24 years. He provides positive insight during his term as we brought in over 700 recreation aides to the classified service, completed some of our largest classification studies that involved about over 900 people. We changed the seniority system for all the classified employees, and we updated our substitute procedures for the benefit of all. Due to his years of experience, he's really provided us a lot of helpful personnel insight through this pandemic, and he's really vigilant about providing a fair and equitable process of hiring and promoting our classified staff. So unfortunately, Commissioner Ulashevsky couldn't be here tonight, but if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
Do we have any questions?
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes.
I just want to thank Mr. Cotto for coming. This is, Terry has been an invaluable servant to this community, to our students, to our families, and our district and employees for a long time, and I'm grateful that he continues to step up. One of my favorite things is when he does step up, he comes and shares with us, so I miss him tonight, and I send him my virtual best from here and thank him for his service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming and speaking out on his behalf. Okay, all in favor, Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Dr. Williams?
Aye.
Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
I vote aye, so that is unanimous. That passes unanimously. Resolution 100720, am I?
Mrs. Craig, you have one more item, approval of member to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee before the resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just was getting ahead of myself. Okay, approval of member to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
Move approval.
Approval.
Second.
Discussion. Well, I would just like to thank Ms. Pamela Williams. She is a parent and PTA volunteer at Carver, and she will be stepping up to serve on that committee. So to Ms. Williams, thank you for your willingness to serve. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, Mr. Meyer,
Aye.
Ms. Kerr,
Aye.
Dr. Williams,
Aye.
Dr. Benitez.
Aye.
I vote aye, so that item also passes unanimously. Okay, now we're at Resolution 100720-C, directing district staff to assess and provide recommendations for district properties considered for surplus pursuant to the Asset Management Advisory Committee recommendation report. And I'm thankful to see David Miranda here to speak to that item.
Thank you for having me, members of the board, Superintendent Baker, executive staff, and members of our audience out there. I'm proud to be up here to speak to this item. I'll be very brief, just kind of provide a little bit of background information before we get to a recommendation. So really just to take us back a few steps, back in March of this year, earlier this year, I was up here presenting information related to our Asset Management Advisory Committee. The committee was comprised of various individuals representing various geographical areas in our district and different backgrounds and whatnot. The committee met over the stretch of about 7 to 8 months, met 7 times, including a public hearing. There was no comments at that public hearing. The committee was charged with reviewing 7 properties. 2 properties are currently vacant and have been vacant really for a number of years. 5 of the other properties are currently occupied by various district programs and functions, yet the committee reviewed each one of those properties in and of themselves. We presented information with respect to maintenance data, enrollment data, and other pertinent information for the committee's consideration. Ultimately, the committee presented a report which we presented to the school board and the board accepted formally in March. The report was really step 1 in the surplus process, and here we are now with step 2. So it's been several months. We really just wanted to bring this item to the forefront of the discussion again, so we can engage in dialogue with the school board and really seek direction with respect to staff preparing an ultimate recommendation and a plan for disposition of these properties. The plan may entail a recommendation for all 7 properties. It could entail a recommendation for just a few of them, perhaps the vacant parcels first. And with that, I'm really open to feedback. If there's any questions or anything you'd like us to consider as we prepare information with respect to a recommendation.
Dr. Benitez.
Go make up some money, Mr. Miranda.
There you go.
Rent, sell, repurpose, do what you gotta do to get us some money.
I can share that there's interest in the property still to this date. So we field a few phone calls every so often, get a couple emails every so often, and we've really shared with these folks in the community that we're at step 1, we're proceeding into step 2, and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll throw out there, while I appreciate that we need some money, I think on some of our properties, we need to be really thoughtful in what the needs of our community are, and that if we have the opportunity to partner with or engage with folks who are doing affordable housing, who are doing transitional housing, especially I would throw out the Long Beach Boulevard property as something that I've had conversations with some nonprofits around homeless or foster youth housing. So I would like us to, in our desire to use what is community and school property in the best interest of our community, that we think in addition to the financial gain that we may get, that we really look to use it for the best community good in the proposals that we seek, or the ideas that we generate, and interest that is given in those properties to do the most good to serve students and families in non-educational ways as well. So that is my 2 cents, and I certainly have a lot more to say, and I'd love to schedule some time with you, Mr. Miranda, to talk about it.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, Mr.
Hello.
Meyer?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, Dr. Williams, did you have
Yeah.
something to add?
Yes, I just wanted to add to Megan Kerr's comments. You know, we've been discussing the dilemma in the district with the question of housing and the impact on our families, the fact that we don't have the the kind of affordable housing that could bring families into the city and add to the number of kids in our district. As we began to lose housing to a lot of the commercial development downtown, and the housing in that area, which supported a large number of families, single parent family, that supported a number of families, that housing stock was never replaced. And the idea or concept of being able to use some of our surplus properties for that purpose would be extremely important in terms of providing opportunities for affordable housing and bringing families back into the district.
Okay, thank you for those comments. I seem to be out of order. I don't believe I had a motion. So.
Move approval.
We had kind of discussion without the motion.
Board Member
move
Kerr just
But
moved.
who's counting? So.
That's happened before.
Okay. So Ms. Kerr, you made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
It was a really good discussion, though, even though it was out of order.
It was a very good discussion. Now, all in favor, Mr. Meyer,
Aye.
Ms. Kerr,
Aye.
Dr. Williams,
Aye.
Dr. Benitez.
Aye.
I vote aye, so that passes 5-0. Resolution 100720-A, approving the proposed project and adopting the initial study and mitigated negative declaration for the Avalon K-12 HVAC ADA contaminated soil removal and new synthetic turf field project.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Miranda, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you. I know that was a mouthful in terms of the project description, so thank you. So prior to commencing work on any project, we really have to first demonstrate compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA as we call it with its acronym. This includes an accurate description of the project. In this specific case, and the reason why it was so lengthy, we've really bundled and packaged a few projects together for the sake of being efficient, right? So the HVAC project, the modernization type project, is one. The synthetic turf field project is a project that will immediately follow the air conditioning project out there. For purposes of CEQA, we're able to bundle those and take this action as one. We retain the services of a professional consultant to help us prepare an initial study. That initial study was really charged with determining, does any of the work we're doing out there, is any of the work involved in this project going to pose a significant effect on the environment? And based on the initial study and its findings, we were then redirected to prepare a mitigated negative declaration pursuant to statute and guidelines. That mitigative negative declaration and initial study were made available for public review, so we circulated via the typical channels, posted at public libraries, posted on our webpage, posted at the Avalon site, and various other locations as well. We did receive a few public comments, and those public comments were incorporated as part of the public record in the initial study. And we actually adapted the initial study and mitigated negative declaration slightly to incorporate that feedback we received from the community. The study includes a review of a number of factors, really 31 different factors. This includes noise, traffic, architectural aesthetics, and various other potential impacts on the project. When all was said and done, the study found that the project would not pose a significant impact to the environment once all mitigation measures are implemented. I'll list a few examples, just taking a few inserts away from the report. One such example is construction start and end times out on the project. So initially in our report, we stated that construction could start as soon as 7 a.m. out there. Come to find there's an Avalon ordinance that requires that construction cannot start until 8 a.m. So we've now incorporated that into this report. It's now part of the public record there. There was one public comment from a representative of a Native American tribe. Really just had some questions with respect to our monitoring. Should we encounter some type of artifact out there? So we've incorporated that type of feedback. They were really positive with respect to our response. So they were happy that we, in fact, have done this before and have a monitor in place to account for that type of information. So really what we're doing here this evening is presenting this board resolution for potential adoption. This really accepts the project as described, and the board would basically certify that we're compliant with CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act.
Okay, do we have questions for Mr. Miranda on this one? All right. Any further discussion? No. Okay. All in favor, Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Dr. Williams?
Aye.
Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
I vote aye. So this item passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Miranda. Equity Policy Development Update, Dr. Brown.
I'm going to speak from here so I can see you. So in keeping with our promise, I'd like to offer, thank you, an update on some of the equity work that we're doing. And I'll speak, and I believe you have a hard copy of the slides, so you can look along with me. There will be no quiz, but there will be an opportunity for engagement and for some of your input as we move forward. So in returning to the idea of our student equity engagement, I just wanted to give an update on the timeline that we're working from. I've had a lot of great conversation with students as we prepare to launch a student thought exchange. So that will launch by October 19th and remain open until October 30th. And that will be specifically to gather input on what equity means to students, some of the experiences that they're having, and what would really benefit adults, school leaders, staff, to hear from students in terms of the lens that they're looking at related to equity. I'm working with a group of students that we heard from in a board meeting a few weeks back. Our 4 students who have begun a chapter of DAWN, Diversify Our Narrative, here in Long Beach. And I had a meeting with them this last Monday in the afternoon. They were gracious enough to join me at 3:30 following their day of virtual school to do yet another Zoom meeting with me. And really, I want to express thanks to Kate Brown, Anaya Lewis, True Jones, and Nicole Weaver, who are 4 students from Milliken, who were able to help me with some input around the thought exchange idea, as well as the idea of a student-led town hall. And they were so helpful in the meeting that I asked them if they would be willing to help me in leading the town hall meeting that will be coming up later this month at the end of October, and they were gracious enough to help me with some ideas around that. We'll also be moving forward with a selection of student representatives to comprise a student equity leadership team, and those will be students from each high school. So just an update for you on where we are in terms of the student engagement around equity. And this is one of the efforts that are being made. This is certainly not the only effort that's being made. In returning to this idea of a district equity leadership team, and this is where I want to get some input from you as we go forward. So the purpose of that team will be to advise the district on issues of equity that pertain to policy and practice based on having voices from the field and input from stakeholders. And we're talking about a group of approximately 25 participants that would reflect a diversity in experience, background, and thoughts. We would ask for a 2-year commitment to be a part of this equity leadership team. Participants could be nominated by someone else, but must be willing to individually complete an application. And we would ask for agreement that participation would include a monthly equity leadership team meeting and the potential of sharing or presenting in equity updates or reports going forward at board meetings. So this is kind of the overview of the design that we're proposing, and this I'll be asking for your input momentarily. In terms of the criteria, this is something that I have been asked, and it's been really nice to have outreach from community members and staff who have said, I've heard you talk about an equity leadership team, how do I get on it? am I eligible to apply? How do I apply? So we're moving forward with that process now. And in thinking around some criteria, these are things that we're posing for discussion. First is an interest in our work and practice on equity in Long Beach Unified. Second would be a written statement of commitment to equity in Long Beach schools. Next would be a letter of recommendation for participation that honors the commitment and cause of equity for the person who's applying. Next would be evidence of equity interest through prior work experience, teaching, or volunteerism. And then finally, a demonstrated ability to work well with others, because as we move forward, our strength will really come from the way that we can collaborate with, share with, take risks with, and join with one another. Here's a timeline for what we're thinking about. We're looking at October 19th as a call for nominations, and that application period would remain open for several weeks, so between October 19th and November 6th. By November 16th, the equity leadership team would be announced. We would hold our first ELT meeting by December 7th or on December 7th. The time of day will be determined because I feel like I need to survey the participants once we determine who they are as far as what their availability might look like. And then we would commence with monthly meeting dates in 2021 by December 18th. So with that, I'll ask you for two pieces of discussion. One is your input on the team description criteria or selection process that I've described, and then what have I missed in terms of what you would like to be considered?
Ms. Kerr or Dr. Williams?
Do you want to take our slide? Do you want to take the slides down so that we can see them?
Yeah, that might be helpful.
Would you repeat the question?
Sure, Dr. Williams, I was asking for input on two things. One, anything that you would like to offer in terms of the equity leadership team description, the criteria, or the selection process, and then anything else that I might have missed or that you would like to be considered.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is just take a closer look at that criteria and get my input into you at a later point, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, Ms. Kerr, did you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, just briefly. Thank you for the continued update and the continued work that you are doing on this, in addition to all of the other things that are happening. It's, I think, helpful for me, but also for our community to know that this work continues to be at the heart of what we do, even though we're dealing with logistics having to do with school and virtual learning and phasing in processes. There's a lot on everyone's plate, and it is heartening to know that this is still a major piece of the work that we're doing moving forward. I had a quick question actually on the student engagement piece. So the thought exchange will be deployed on the 19th. Is there an age range that's targeted? I know that the committee members will be high school students, but wondering if there'll be an opportunity for middle school students or upper elementary students to have their say that will look different than what our high school students are doing, but I think no less valuable into the insights of that kind of on the ground in the field experience.
Thank you for that question. We've talked about deploying certainly to middle and high school, but not to preclude an elementary age student who wants to participate. So we will be meeting tomorrow and talking about our communication plan and how we plan to share the word with others and with students specifically around the thought exchange. But definitely don't want to limit the input of any of our students regardless of their age or grade.
I appreciate the criteria that you've put together for the ELT. We know that folks oftentimes want to contribute and want to jump on a committee and give their thoughts. But I appreciate that this is a longer term commitment that this is meant to be, or it feels like it's meant to be, an engaging and in-depth process. And some of our other processes have in the past been only a meeting or 2 or 3 commitment. But this is really calling people who this is the work of their heart, and this is the work of the community that they represent or feel the need to speak with on behalf of. So I don't think I have any additions at the moment. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Benitez.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. Thank you for the update, Dr. Brown. One is, I think it would be great in terms of the student engagement, if we could have targeted engagement, for example, with the students taking our ethnic studies courses, right? Since they bring delivered content specifically around social justice and equity, and then also our leadership academy students, right? So, you know, still part of the same student engagement, but targeted engagement.
Thank you for that.
With them. And then a second thought, a data point that was shared to us pre-COVID stood out for some reason right now when you were sharing the update. And it was around us graduating more college eligible students of color, but them not necessarily resulting in more, particularly Black students of color, attending college. All right, so I'm wondering if there's a way to loop in our educational partners, particularly since we're revisiting the Long Beach Promise through a racial equity lens. I'm thinking, you know, again, just spitballing here, alum maybe at LBCC or at Cal State Long Beach. I mean, there's 3 really connecting points. One is they're obviously former students of ours, if we use that as a criteria. We're reimagining the Long Beach Promise and our seamless education efforts, but that data point stood out, all right, that we are achieving the outcome of having more college-ready students, but that's not necessarily translating into higher college-going rates amongst those students.
Thank you. Thank you for the thoughtful comment. Appreciate it.
Mr. Meyer, did you have something to add?
No, it crossed my mind though, would it be advisable perhaps to have a teacher from the Long Beach Unified in that body?
I'm sure hopeful, and I've already had a handful of teachers reach out and express interest. So we will be widely communicating the nomination opportunity and the application window to staff as well as community members, looking for a nice balance of each.
I just had a question on making sure we have representation from across the district, maybe from the different high schools, making sure each high school is represented, or you know, parent representation, so we have different voices.
Absolutely. We're planning for that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your input.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Report of board members. We will start with Dr. Benitez.
Oh, you caught me off guard, Madam Chair. I was trying to gather my thoughts here. I thought I was going to go last, but I'll go first.
You can go last.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Actually, I'll keep my comments very brief since I had a little soapbox moment earlier. Dr. Baker, is it possible to get an update? And if we got it via email, I apologize, I missed it, on the status of our phone-in messaging public comment at some point?
Yes,
okay.
I can just briefly say that we're in progress, testing and working with the company to be ready to implement it. Our staff identified some needs in terms of its transcription, and are working closely with the company. So I think we're very close.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah, my comments are more around thanking our teachers and parents and guardians and family members for their patience and grace and flexibility these past, is it 5 weeks now, Dr. Baker, that we've been entering the school year? I think even at our quote-unquote worst moments of frustration, of sadness, that we still all want the same things for our students. And I know that a lot of folks have reached out to us as board members and to executive staff. And I did want to caveat my earlier comments that I did not mean to disparage any of the folks that have been coming to give us public comment, but I did want to emphasize that not everyone's experience in the household, in their neighborhood, and in their virtual classroom is the same. And so I just wanted to highlight the ideals of moving forward aren't necessarily mutually exclusive of all students moving forward, but not all students, unfortunately, because of larger structural issues, have the same resources nor the same opportunities. Hence, we have an equity leadership team, being considered. So, thank you to teachers. I have a third grader at home. I was having a conversation with Dr. Baker a couple weeks ago that if I were to just take 15 minutes out of the week, it would really depend on what 15 minutes I wanted to listen in on her school experience. So if it's after lunch, I would have gotten a sense of some independent work. If it was in that morning time slot, I would have certainly highlighted some of the frustrations with connectivity. I think at one point on Monday at 9:40 a.m., there were 3 students logged in to the classroom. But in that case, that teacher showed so much grace and flexibility. And again, taken out of context or even within context, everyone was frustrated at that point. On the other hand, if I would have checked in just yesterday, at lunch, she could not wait to get back on to the screen because even though it was distant, her teacher was giving them 5 minutes before the restart to check in with her friends. So I just wanted to highlight that because if I only had the opportunity to listen in, and not everyone, again, we're very fortunate that I can listen in, check in, and I did see a lot of frustration on social media this week, particularly around connectivity, and again, just appreciative of our teachers, of our parents, particularly to those that are showing grace and flexibility and love, really at this point, and we'll get there, right? We're a month in and phasing into more in person, so just kudos to our principals too. So if anyone ever considered being a principal at a school, try putting your skills to the test at the beginning of a school year during a global pandemic to make a school run. So thank you to all of our staff and teachers.
Thank you. Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to just take a few minutes to discuss a presentation by the Cabrillo High School Math Collaborative. It's an update that Terrence Bryant presented, and just to talk about the program under COVID. And I thought the presentation was excellent. A number of people participated in the program. Part of that, he mentioned a number of partnerships and the respective roles of those partners. And let me list the partners that he has working with that program. University of California at Irvine, the Early Academic Outreach, and the program partnership focuses on A through G, transcript analysis, college and career preparation. The University of California, also Irvine, Center for Black Culture, Resources and Research, and again, a program that helps to form a assessment of the students' heritage in terms of their culture. The University of California, Los Angeles, the Black Male Institute. Again, that one is partnership is involved with college career prep, cultural awareness and mentorship, and the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Outreach, In that program, focusing on increasing STEM exposure through STEM workshops, STEM presentations, and providing memberships. And of course, the Elevate Your Game, which is a nonprofit focusing on mentoring programs. Also, Shades of Blue, and I want to talk about Shades of Blue for a minute, which is under the direction of Captain Willie Daniels. And you already heard from Bob Barbosa and the Barbosa Space Center. These are some of the partners that the program at Cabrillo has been working with. Let me talk about Captain Daniels for a minute, someone that I met years ago and developed a good relationship with him. Captain Daniels is a pilot for United Airlines who just retired this month. But he is the CEO of Shades of Blue. Shades of Blue is an organization that primarily teaches students in various areas of the United States the art of flying planes. And there's a lot to that I want to talk about. There's chapters in various cities throughout the United States. We recently established a location at Ontario Airport. And Terrence, Bryan, and I were involved in assisting in the setup of the location at Ontario Airport. Now that program partners with NASA, and it also partners with the Federal Aviation Administration, and for a reason. The two agencies, particularly FAA, is really interested in the piloting portion of that program because of the perceived shortages of pilots that are being forecasted in the United States. And not just pilots, but the other aspects of the airport operations. There is a massive number of individuals that will be retiring. So the partnership with FAA has been extremely dynamic. I, in turn, introduced Captain Daniels to Michael Casserly, the executive director of the Council of Great City Schools. And Captain Daniels introduced Mike Casserly to the director of NASA, Charlie Bolin, because we saw the connection in the work that Captain Daniels was doing that could be of importance to our other school districts throughout the United States. And now, the Math Collaborative involvement in Shades of Blue, and the reason why we got the students involved with Shades of Blue is the very nature of being able to develop an interest in math and science. And perennially, through all the years that I've understood this process with our kids, particularly African-American kids, they don't do particularly well in math and science. And I've seen that phenomena throughout my career in higher ed, even as director of the Learning Center at Dominguez High School, where we really saw the number of kids who were experiencing problems in those areas, and on to my years at Long Beach City College as the Dean of Business and Social Science. But it was my thought that if you can show students what the application of math and science looked like, then it would pique their interest in those subjects. And so the rationale for getting these kids involved was exactly to make them see how important and impactful math and science could be by having them involved in an area where they can actually utilize those skills. So that's precisely what occurs when they got involved in this pilot training program, is they now could see the importance of math and science. So the students were taking classes at Ontario Airport on Saturdays in the morning to learn how to fly planes. And they were joined with students from Ontario Unified School District. And the interesting thing is they had to get out to Ontario each Saturday morning to participate in those classes. In many cases, the parents of those students drove them out to Ontario Airport every Saturday to participate in the pilot training courses. But those courses had to be terminated because of the pandemic. We had to stop the courses. And what Captain Daniels has done, and I've worked with him, he's developed a learning management system to be able to continue teaching the pilot training courses in spite of the fact that the kids can't get out to Ontario Airport. What I have shared with a number of the people that have been involved with that project, and this project is not only training the kids to be pilots, but it's also looking at other areas in the airline industry, all phases of the airline industry. But my thought is that the kids through this involvement would improve their interest and involvement in school. They would improve their interest in math and science. You would see an improvement in their GPAs, also participation in honors and AP courses, increased college attendance, improve A through G participation, and the opportunities to be involved in airline industry through pilot training and some of the other jobs that are opening up in that area. So this has been a sort of a major piece for us in terms of adding additional pieces to what is going on with the Math Collaborative students. And I may add that not only do we have the Cabrillo students that are involved in this project, but also students from the Math Collaborative at Wilson High School. What I plan to do is to extend an invitation to Captain Daniels to present at our November board workshop so you can hear more from him about this project. Because he's attempting to scale this project up to include more students. And of course, we have a number of female students involved in this program as well. I'd like to ask Dr. Camarino, if he's in the audience tonight, what was his perception of the presentation, because he did participate in it. Is Dr. Camarino here tonight?
He is here.
He's missing in action. Okay.
No, he's here. He's here.
Oh, Dr. Camarino, you want to just comment on what you pulled out of that presentation?
It was a great collaboration of many of our community partners and folks that are really vested into supporting our students of color, especially our African American males, to succeed in math, and having that connection with the community in supporting and advocating and mentoring our young males that are in this program that are doing an exceptional job. To that, I wanted to also commend, and was going to call you and email you to let you know that we also had a presentation of what the Math Collaborative has been doing with data, and was shared with Dr. Poffenberger and then with our team at the high school office to replicate some of the work that they've been doing as far as what they've done and the work that they've been doing with our students. So it was a great, not only a follow-up from what we were a part of on that Friday, but in subsequent weeks, the data that he was able to present was excellent, along with the work that they're doing with Wilson High School. So thank you. Yes, it was a great meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Camarino.
You know, Dr. Williams, at this late hour, it's a little dangerous to start taking roll on members.
I'm sorry?
I think you have to repeat it.
Would you repeat that?
I said, you have to be careful, Dr. Williams. At this late hour, you're taking roll on important members who may or may not be here. Thanks for being here, Jay.
I apologize. I'll let you make up on your sleep a little later, John, but I just want to make one more comment and I'm done. This program at Cabrillo and Wilson also involves Hispanic students. And what I love about seeing both groups of students is the kinds of interactions that are being developed between Hispanic and the African American students, and what role that can play in a larger scene on campus in being able to bring those groups together. And this is a small segment of the relationships that are developing between those two groups. What we have in place at Cabrillo is some racial strife between those two groups. And the fact that you can bring these two together in this sort of an environment in the Math Collaborative, I think is a way going forward that will help reduce a lot of the racial strife that we're seeing between these two groups. So that's an exemplary program that's doing very good work, and it's reflecting absolute progress at Cabrillo High School and moving the needle for kids of color in that district and at Wilson High School as well. And I think has a great deal of potential as we look at equity programs that can be scaled up throughout our district to realize some of the same impacts as we're seeing with the program at Cabrillo High School and Wilson High School. Of course, the program at Jordan High School has a unique and special history all its own, and it's doing an absolute fantastic job in terms of the students that it's moving through that program. So that's my report, and thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kerr.
Yes, thank you. I just want to give a shout out to our marketing and media services team. Again, they continue to do exceptional work in reaching out and connecting with students and families and community members across social media. I have particularly enjoyed their Latinx Heritage Month series that has been happening, the student art competition, reminding us in their work with staff and teachers across the district of good things happening in the midst of all of this. I want to thank, it's a collective moment of gratitude for me, for all of us, in what I heard someone say, and it kind of stuck, partly because I'm a baseball fan, for all of us in this, our rookie year of doing our jobs in a pandemic. And I know that the spring, it was sort of forced, we were forced into this, and this is the first full year of doing this work. And it feels like a rookie year for a lot of us, getting our footing in and getting into a rhythm that is different than we've ever had to do it. Even being a board member in a pandemic is different, and not just because of the policy piece and the community engagement and the necessary engagement, but oftentimes we're invited to peek in on schools and programs and students and families to be able to assess how things are going, get the feel and the community that's happening at a school site. And I miss it, and I miss being able to be with our students and families in those organic ways. And so just kudos to everyone who's trying to figure this out work-wise in this first year. And also a reminder to take care of yourself, take care of your family. I know it's been said, and we've tried to make people aware of the services that are available through the Family Resource Centers. And those services are available to every student. 6 months into this, and we're probably at least 6 months away from feeling like it's somewhat normal again in this life, and really reflecting on how we take care of our own mental health so that we can be better parents, better board members, better friends, better colleagues to each other. So a reminder to myself especially, but to all of us, that taking care of ourselves in this moment is necessary, and taking a breath and a break from the logistical, what feels like chaos some days, and understanding that coming from a place of taking care of yourself and your family is the most important thing for student and family success right now. So we don't know what this is going to look like 5 years from now when the history books are written. I don't know what kind of parent I've been through the pandemic, but I'm certainly more aware 6 months in that I want to be really intentional about how I'm parenting my kids and being a partner to my family and my colleagues. So take care of yourself, avail yourselves of the resources that are available through the city. The 562 just did a great piece on what some of those resources are. And our family resources centers, our counselors and principals are always there to help guide you in that direction. So take good care, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer.
Thank you. I'd like to follow up on the thanks that Dr. Benitez began to offer to our staff. We can't thank you all enough, our teachers, our support staff. And I know our parents are deeply concerned about what direction we're going, and rightly so. It's okay to be selfish about your kid and want the very best for him, and we all know that. Dr. Benitez has skin in the game. He has a daughter in school in the Long Beach Unified. I have a grandson. I have a son who's a teacher. So I'm close to the situation, and I know the frustrations that they're all going through. But I want to tell our public, everyone, that no one is working harder to solve these issues than our staff. It reminds me of a very highly acclaimed academic study that John F. Kennedy did at Harvard entitled Why England Slept. And it was a study on why democracy in the face of a crisis was so slowly to come around to the fate that Hitler was determined to levy on the world. And democracies are slow and they're a little cumbersome. Everything doesn't work like clockwork. And I think that's where we are. And I hope our public understands that as hard and as dedicated as our staff is working, there are a lot of pitfalls, a lot of unforeseen events that spring up, a lot of parties that we have to deal with. We have the labor faction, we have our teachers, we have the medical profession, we have politicians, everyone's stirring the pot in one direction or another. So, a long-winded way of saying thank you, one and all, and to the general public, hang in there. This is a great district, and you have great leaders.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. I do appreciate how you are always able to pull out some kind of quote or some kind of relevant story. I don't know how you do it, but you have quite the file folder in your mind. And I always appreciate that. I'm going to keep my comments short. I just want to congratulate Bancroft teacher Linda McClure. She was named a Teacher of the Year for LA County Office of Education. And last week, I think it was last week, it's hard to tell, though, there was a celebration and car parade in her honor. Her colleagues put together a special event for her. So congratulations. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of our teachers. They are under a tremendous strain. They are rising to the occasion in meeting the needs of their kids, not just educationally, but their social emotional well-being as well. And I know that it is a Herculean task to provide education in a brand new way. And I've heard from a lot of teachers that are putting in so many extra hours and so much effort to be there for their kids and to do their job. So I just want to thank all of our teachers, and then also thank the principals that are supporting them, because it is, the month of the principals also. Dr. Baker, did you have?
I do, and I know it's late, but I have some things I'd like to highlight tonight. First of all, I'd just like to thank staff for the presentations tonight. I think tonight's meeting clearly illustrates the depth and breadth and complexity of running the fourth largest district in the state of California, the largest employer, the largest landowner in our city, and the issues that go with that. We love our school system, and so you know why we're working tirelessly on behalf of students. I also want to just publicly affirm the commitment to bringing students back to school. There's a lot of things that happen on a day-to-day basis that don't get communicated, and I personally receive that feedback, and I know our staff listens carefully to the feedback about communication, and we will clearly get Dr. Brown's message out from tonight in several different ways in the days to come, so that there's some clarity. Communication is always a challenge for us. We spend our days working towards helping students, helping teachers, helping principals. We have a great support staff in the Public Information Office and marketing and media, but we are here to serve students, and sometimes we need feedback and improvement in the area of communication. So that is received tonight. Some things that go out, if it's a video or written correspondence, we often hear it's too much, too little, we don't like the videos, we don't like the print version, so we're trying things as much as we can as well. But I want to land on just some celebrations. First, to center our students and to tell you some things about our students. Despite what is happening in the pandemic, we have some amazing things to celebrate in our students. So I want to start with a group of students who I'm going to read from our press release, or our names in the news, about some of our recent graduates and other students who have really been recognized for something important. Two of our Millikan High School recent graduates, Hannah Torres and Jaden Cantrell, are among 33 advanced placement research students globally to be published in the Journal of Student Research High School edition. Both students now attend UC Berkeley. And get this, here's what they researched. Torres' research piece is titled Bridging the Financial Gap Among Young People. And Jaden's piece discussed the relationship between implicitly political films and political polarization. The students were mentored by Millikan Questley teacher Russ Redman. Also published in the journal was recent Pauley High School graduate, you'll remember her because she was a student board member at one point, Emily Hardesty, who explored student representation on the Board of Education. And Pauley senior Justin Lim examined Phantom Wikia as a model for labor exploitation. Fellow Pauley senior Aaron Hoy's piece looked at blue light therapy and circadian rhythm, effect on Southern California high school students. They were mentored by teacher Samantha Lawrence. So such great recognition for our students and just really speaks to their brilliance. Last week I had the opportunity to talk with a fifth grader from Nieto Herrera, who has started a group called the Cancer Fighters, supported by her mother and by her proud principal, Claire Fieri, a club that raises funds through the making of bracelets that apparently take about 3 minutes to make. These are in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I'm wearing one proudly. They sell them, and then they use the funds to provide things for those less fortunate in the community. They've provided things for families that are involved in staying at the hospital and having care for their students. So even a young fifth grader, Nellie, and then her cousin, Capone, who's a Renaissance High School student, just making a difference in our community. Next week, we will have one of our students representing us on a national town hall panel, Glenn Perez Rodriguez. I know, Ms. Craighead, you have met him personally, a Californians for Justice youth leader who will be representing us on the Council of Great City Schools town hall panel discussion to talk about the student experience of going through COVID with his family. And then lastly, in centering students, just to tell you briefly, we're about to launch the Superintendent's Student Advisory Committee. And in many of the ways that Dr. Brown described in gathering students and in an application process, we have two student leaders, Megan from Pauley and Maya from Wilson, who are going to co-facilitate this along with Ms. Lavelle and myself to engage students. A quick story, Maya was a student intern with Myrna in our Marketing and Media Services office this summer. And I met her in the parking lot after interviewing her and doing a podcast with her to hear about her experience. And Maya said, "Can I talk to you about something?" Sure. She had an idea called RSVP, Raising Student Voice and Participation, which is now the name of the Superintendent's Student Advisory Committee. She, along with Megan, were building the first agenda, and in about a week and a half will engage 25 of their fellow students from every campus, both boys, girls, non-binary students, students that identify as LGBTQ, and from all different ethnicities in our city that will come together and be a part of the Superintendent Student Advisory Committee to advise, discuss, and provide student perspective on the things that go on in our district. So very, very proud of that group. I want to remind parents who at some point may watch this that they can access Parent University off of our district homepage. They are actively providing supports for Canvas tips, and then Canvas parent training that is provided with support from the Marketing and Media Department, who was already so nicely acknowledged this evening. The good thing about those trainings is they are live streamed, so a parent can watch them live, but then they're archived on the district YouTube site, and so parents can go back in at any time and access that to support themselves. Linda McClure, Ms. Craighead recognized her for being Teacher of the Year. She's the third Bancroft teacher to be a Teacher of the Year, and it was a lovely celebration of her talents and her contribution to students that I actually had the pleasure of participating in last week. We also had a Teacher Librarian of the Year, and Darlene Dunn recognized she's the Teacher Librarian at Adams and McKinley. And then lastly, to our principals. So we know, and the research shows us, that principals are the second greatest influencer of student achievement, second only to a classroom teacher. And you heard words like unifiers, inspirers, coaches, mobilizers, builders, analysts, and what Mr. Meyer read in that resolution. And that is true of our principals. So I just want to shout out to them how much we appreciate them. And without a principal, we could have effective teachers in a building that didn't do all those things together that a principal makes sure happen as collaborative teams and building that collective efficacy. We have one of our principals who has been accepted into a national institute, the National Institute for Latino School Leaders, and Veronica Madrigal. She'll represent herself, she'll represent us, and she'll make a great contribution to the work of that institute. It's the inaugural year, and she'll also bring back her learning to help us when we think about serving our English learners. And so we are super proud of her and excited to have her in that realm. So thank you again. Thank you for your what you have provided for us in terms of direction to staff, for engaging with us on all different topics. We appreciate you, and thank you.
Thank you. Do we have announcements? No announcements? Okay, how about adjournment?
So moved.
Then we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.